This is the mug of my late and dear friend who was an unpaid domestic worker in Seattle, which, by the way, is called human trafficking, but that is a story for another video. How could I not believe in consent culture? Now, if you have heard of consent culture from some conservative media, I'm sure you have myriad reasons why you think consent culture is bad, but I generally am a very big advocate for consent culture, even more so than the typical Seattleite. In fact, one of my favorite pastimes is pointing out ways in which other Seattleites actually don't believe in consent culture. I love pointing out the little flaws in how they move day to day, if they are someone who's going to claim to believe in consent culture. So what is consent culture? Consent culture is the idea that the proper way for another person to be treated can be determined by that other person, which is not, it's not following what the Bible says, for example, which whenever we repeat the golden rule, treat others like you would like to be treated. That is the golden rule, which comes straight out of the Bible. The Bible says, love your neighbor as yourself. That's the golden rule. Seattle doesn't have very high church attendance, so it would make sense that we reject the golden rule, but you will find many, many Seattleites who have not thought through this, and they will both repeat the golden rule and a little while later repeat that they love consent culture and we should act in consent culture. This is the one way that I think consent culture should not be followed, and that is when it comes to calling police for DV situations. Now, in my own situation, when I was actively getting verbally, emotionally, and thankfully only a little physically abused by my ex-husband, at that time, I didn't like the cops. That's not a very strange stance for Seattleites. There's a lot of Seattleites that would rather things be worked out without the government or without the police. And during that time frame, there was a time that my neighbors called the cops on my ex-husband and I. My ex-husband had done something really, really terrible. He had taken my phone and I was screaming at the top of my lungs, bad enough that my neighbor felt like they had to call the police on us, even though, there had been screaming other times before. Why did he take my phone? Well, that's a little mistake I made that I won't be making again, but I didn't know better, right? So in the spirit of not wanting to go to the police, but not liking how my ex-husband was treating me, I told him I was gonna go call his mother and tell his mother what he was doing. And he took his phone from me. He took my phone from me. So, that's always a big indicator of he knows he's doing something wrong if he doesn't want his mom to hear about it, right? But in the future, going forward, I know don't ever make threats like that. Just go ahead and go do what you think you need to do. Besides that, even if I was someone who would not want to call the police, it is still not okay for me to lose access to my ability to call 911 in case my mind changes in the moment and I want to call the police. But later on when this all went to court, which wasn't that long, it was maybe half a year after that, that police report made by my neighbor was very helpful in convincing the court that yes, my ex-husband was a problem. Yes, I needed protections. Yes, this is real. Yes, my testimony is real and it is lining up with this police report that this stranger made many months before. And I expect that this unfortunately is going to happen many, many times going forward into the future, that there will be people that want to work things out without the police intervening. But the day will come when they do have to come to the police, that their mind changes, and they're going to be very, very thankful for that paper trail. And it will help them get the protections that they need in the future.